Stanley is a martial artist and a 5th-degree black belt in the art of Ed Parker's American Kempo Karate. He also has a unique background of being the stepbrother to the late Elvis Presley. Now, with his fascinating background in Graceland and the martial arts, he also works hard today running his own production company as well as his own philanthropic efforts. Mr. Stanley was kind enough to spend some time with us and share his story.
Well, I grew up as the stepbrother to the late Elvis Presley. I moved into the Graceland mansion in 1960 when my mother and father got a divorce. I was only 4 years old, and my mother married Vernon Presley, Elvis Presley's widowed father. So I moved into Graceland, the home of Elvis Presley, in 1960. I'll never forget the first day I met him. We got out of the car, we walked up the steps of the Graceland mansion. I was just 4. I didn't know what an Elvis was. I didn't know what a hound dog was, for that matter. And Elvis was standing at the door, and he welcomed us into his family. He picked us up, my 2 older brothers and myself, and he gave us a hug, and he welcomed us into his family. And that was the beginning of a very unusual lifestyle. But I never really understood who Elvis was as a 4-year-old kid. I thought everybody had a big house, and I thought everybody was a singer. But, you know, that was, it was a great life. It's something that I lived history. You know, I went to work for Elvis when I was 16 years old. One day in high school, the next day in Madison Square Gardens, did 1,000 concerts with him. Became one of his bodyguards with Mr. Parker. I was introduced to Ed Parker, Grandmaster Ed Parker, in '72. When Elvis took me, he said, "I want you to train with this individual." So when I learned the arts, it was combative. But when you ask me a question like what it was like growing up with Elvis, we could do 15 interviews, and I wouldn't even know where to start.
Now, with Elvis having such a close relationship with Grandmaster Ed Parker, an exposure to the world of Kempo was inevitable.
Kempo was the only part of my life in the martial arts when I met Ed Parker. Now, I met Bill Wallace back then too as well, and a guy named Cog Reed. But when I went to Los Angeles with Elvis for rehearsals for an upcoming tour, he said, "David, let's go down to Santa Monica. I want to introduce you to Ed Parker, my personal karate instructor." And when I first saw him, it was a freak of nature. He did a demo and he moved so quick and fast. And he was big like me. I was born this big, 13'5" at birth. My mother never forgave me. That's what Elvis used to say. So I met Ed, and Ed said, "Man, they grow 'em big down south, don't they?" And he's talking to Elvis. And Ed took me under his wing. And he taught me combative Kempo. In other words, application, because we were bodyguards for Elvis. There was always somebody smarting off, or somebody pulled a gun on him once, another person pulled a knife, and we were there to disarm it. But I fell in love with Kempo. I fell in love with Ed and Tom Kelly and Dave Saniceros, Dave Hebler and Frank Trejo, all these guys I met back then. But it's been the dominant thing in my life. And as I say, today I use it more as a mental focus, the zen of it, to overcome obstacles and disadvantages that I may face from time to time. This is an event that Sean Kelly puts on. Mr. Kelly is a dear friend of mine and my personal karate instructor. He's put this on for many, many years. For lack of a better term, there's some old dogs here. I'm not putting anybody down. I'm 63 years old. And, you know, our combative years are behind us. And so we're embracing the Zen of Kenpo from the structure of mental capacity. You know, it's like thinking through a technique. It's like visualizing a technique. If you can take that visualization within the structure of a technique and turn it into a practical application of one's day, that's the Zen of Kenpo. I just know that as I used it, as I got older, it helped me in my life to deal with other things. Like I've been diagnosed with Parkinson's, for example. I use the Zen of Kenpo, the faith, the meditation, the prayer, whatever you want to call it, to better myself, to not concentrate on the negative but focus on the good. I think if you set your mind to something, if you use what you've been taught for many, many years, or if you're a freshman or new, so to say, to the art, start adapting that meditation concept, that visualization concept. I'm a motivational speaker. When I speak all over the country, and the question that I ask people is very simple. What do you want to be when you grow up? And what's stopping you from being it? And most of it's mental. Sure, we have challenges with our bodies. Like I said, I have Parkinson's now, so I'm not moving like I used to in the art. But I still move, and I still get up, put my shoes on, and go after it. You know, the bottom line is, what do you want to be when you grow up, and how are you going to get there, and what's stopping you? When you answer that question to what's stopping you from getting it, you're going to go mental. And it's either going to be, well, I can't this, I'm too short, I'm too fat, I'm too tall, I got Parkinson's, I'm too this or that or the other, rather than adapting a mentality if I can do all things through the structure of Zen, quote, prayer, quote, meditation, and visualization and focus.
Now, most people have seen the iconic photo of Elvis Presley and the Kenpo crest in his guitar, but most don't know the story of how it got there.
The Kenpo crest on Elvis's guitar. I had been at class one day, and the stickers were on the desk at Parker School in Santa Monica, behind the glass or whatever. I picked up a couple, drove back to the house on Monteville, and this is in Beverly Hills, beautiful home. And I went in and sat down, and I was looking at, I always loved the crest. I always thought it was the coolest thing I've ever seen. I always loved decals because as a kid I used to build model cars. So I said, this is cool. So there was Elvis's Gibson guitar. And I thought to myself, this sticker would be very cool in that black, shiny black gloss. So I picked up the guitar, I put it on there, and I got it on and it looked great. And I thought to myself, I couldn't get it off. Because I started rubbing it and it wouldn't come off. About that time, Elvis walks, I was in his office, which is downstairs at his home. He comes walking in and he says, where's my guitar? I said, it's right there. He said, what's that on my guitar? So I had two choices, die or confess. Well, Elvis, that's a sticker that I got from Parker School to put on your guitar. I love it. I think it's awesome. He said, I think it's great. It went from there to when we did Aloha from Hawaii, 1.5 billion people watched that show live. And when I watch it, I'm the guy that puts the sticker on the guitar.
In addition to his Kenpo karate life, Mr. Stanley also works as a motivational speaker, and he runs his own production company, Impello Entertainment.
Well, I grew up in it. You know, when I was growing up with Elvis, we kind of went from moving to Graceland to Kenpo, the years in between. You know, I grew up on the back lots of the studios and the recording studios and MGM and RCA Records and Paramount and Fox and Universal. Because in the summertime when I was not in school, Elvis was making movies. So I grew up in the entertainment business, growing up on the back lots of the studios in Los Angeles while Elvis was making movies. And so I got the bug very young. After Elvis died, I became a speaker, a motivational speaker. And again, I'd share my story. What do you want to be when you grow up? Well, in 2001, I was at a function speaking and had an assistant working with me. And she said to me, she said, David, let me ask you a question. I said, what's that, Gail? She said, what do you want to be when you grow up? You're not supposed to ask me that. I'm supposed to ask you that. Well, she asked me. I said, I want to be a filmmaker. She said, well, how come you're not doing it? That's what you tell your audience. And I said, I don't have a story. Okay, you don't have a story. You're Elvis's stepbrother. You was a bodyguard at 16. You protected him from everything but himself, and you don't have a story. Wrote the script, raised the money, shot my first film in 2007 called Protecting the King, and the rest is history. When you think of Elvis Presley, you think of glamour, glitz, wholesome. You know, Protecting the King was a hard look at a 16-year-old kid who was brought into Elvis's life without choice. Fate put me there, not bloodlines. And I thought, being a bodyguard for Elvis at 16, what a great story. And so when I told the story, I said, well, tell it honestly, because I knew it'd last forever. You know, the film did okay, but it will sustain forever. What it was really like to be 16 and 17 years old, you know, working with Ed Parker's bodyguards and training, and Elvis as your mentor, doing 1,000 shows, protecting him from everything but himself. Unfortunately, Elvis's Kenpo wasn't enough to sustain his life. He had other bad habits and medications, prescription medications, that cost him his life. So I made the film not only to show what it was like to grow up in that environment, but what can happen to an individual, even Elvis, if they found themselves in a situation of abuse of drugs. So I was very candid. Got a lot of criticism. But you know, the real world got it, understood it. I get a lot of mail saying that really helped me to see what happened. Others who love Elvis, how could you say that about Elvis Presley? They forget he's a person. After that experience of making that first movie, I had the bug to start Impello Entertainment, and we're making other films. What I do is I take an idea, and we get writers and script writers to develop the idea, and we sell it to motion picture companies, or we do private funding ourselves with the film. But I still do motivational speaking, and I'm always going to be asking people what do they want to be when they grow up. But again, under that theme, there's that line of what can happen to anybody. See, as a motivational speaker, again, I talk to people about their addictions or their adversities. Elvis died at 42 years old. You're going to see the abuses that he did, the greatness that he was, but always that reminder of watch where you're going, what you're thinking, and how you do it, because it can take your life.
Now, if you would like to get a copy of Protecting the King, we have a link below in the description. You can find it there. I highly recommend seeing it. In recent years, and in light of his own diagnosis with Parkinson's disease, Mr. Stanley has made it a life mission to focus his efforts back onto his own training, this time to maintain his health, and also putting forward his energy into helping others. He has recently launched the Raised on Rock Foundation, and its purpose is to tackle one of our nation's largest problems, the opioid epidemic.
Yes, Raised on Rock Foundation is a foundation designed to combat the battle against opioid abuse or prescription drug abuses in America today. The world for that matter, but we're starting in our backyard. We're doing it through presentations. As a speaker, I'll share my personal story. I'll bring in other bands, Raised on Rock bands, and we have concerts, and I'll be speaking, and we raise money to distribute to already established environments that are fighting that battle of drug abuse in America, whether it be a halfway house, whether it be a hospital, whether it be educational materials. When I found Elvis dead in 1977 on his bathroom floor from a drug overdose, that changed my life, and that's my motivation for everything that I do within the structure of the charitable scenario that I put together on Raised on Rock. I'm not a celebrity, but I was almost famous. But I use whatever celebrity status I have as a semi-celebrity or whatever to communicate the dangers of what can happen to you if you abuse prescription or any drug medication for that matter. It happened to Elvis, it could happen to anybody. So the foundation just is launching as we're speaking. We'll be doing functions down here and all over the country soon. But it's something very close to my heart because Elvis was 42 and I watched it kill him. I see these kids today who are suffering from it. I see adults who go to the dentist to get a tooth fix and they get their medication and they run out and the dentist don't give it to them without finding somewhere else. I mean, it's at epic proportions. 72,000 people died in 2018. 72,000 dead of drug abuse, mostly prescription drug opioid abuse. So I'm using whatever talent I have left as a communicator, coupled with my celebrity status, and a lot of help from my friends to build a foundation to fight back. RaisedOnRockFoundation.org. For if you want to learn more about us, that's where you can learn all about us. And we do take donations and they're tax deductible. Help us reach these people, help us save a life.
Life presents so many challenges, and it's all too easy to fall out of a rhythm and let your health and training go in the back burner. Everyone has setbacks, and it's really important to find a way to push past them.
Well, I've been there myself. You know, I was diagnosed with Parkinson's 3 years ago, and I said, it's over. You know, I'm shaking, I can't walk like I used to. How in the world can I do martial art? Well, Mr. Kelly said one thing to me that I'll never forget. He said, David, you've heard this all your life. You've got to keep moving. You just got to keep moving. So when you get discouraged and adversities are beating you up, go to the martial art that you love so much in the first place. Use the Zen of it, the mental part of it, to mentally get yourself in shape to go and do it. Sometimes I don't want to get off the couch. Zen, I'm getting off the couch. Mentally seeing myself, visualizing what I can do and where I'll be if I do it, rather than focusing on the down part of it, the crippleization. So I got back into the art, and you know, I'm not the badass I was when I was 20 years old, although I can still hold my own. But my point is really that mentally I got back into the art, and we walked the system like a Tai Chi type, going through the art. And now I'm picking my speed back up, and my mental focus is getting me back on it. So rather than focusing on the negative and the destructiveness of a disease or an adversity, you know, focus on the good part. Focus on what you can do. You know, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do I want to be when I grow up? I want to be a successful Kenpo artist, which is what I am, a successful filmmaker, which I fight for every day, and give back within the structure of my charity Raised on Rock. I'm doing all those things because it started here first. In the mind, from the mind to the marketplace, from the page to the stage, from the script to the screen, however you want to call it. In dealing with adversity, I go to a scripture reference, so a man thinketh in his heart, he becometh. What you think about is what's going to happen to you. And if you're bringing in that vibe of negative all the time, I've got Parkinson's, I'm sick, I can't move like I used to, I can't walk like I can't drive, I can't this, that, and the other, you'll talk yourself right into the grave. That goes back to the power of Zen. exchange that negative for a positive. And there's nothing new about this. It's not some new technology like, oh my God, this guy's got the answer. You got to think right, and you got to take a risk. When I first got on the mat, I was scared to death. But after I got back on the mat, Mr. Keller and I training together, it all starts coming back. And I'll get back to where I was. I'm 62 instead of 16, but I'll get back to it, and I'll achieve what I want to achieve. And the reason I do Kenpo is the discipline. It's not the badass guy that I was as a bodyguard. I don't go around beating up people like I did when I was a kid or protecting a king like I had to before. I'm using the mental part of it to live a happier, fuller life, and it's working. Zen is part of the art of Kenpo. Zen is the part of karate in general, any art or any martial art. And that's that mental focus, that spiritual perspective, thriving to be better, thriving to move forward, aggressively perpetuating your message, good message to humanity. But the martial arts, I mean, I can't even go into a school. It just breaks my heart. That buy about and go to McDonald's. It's like a soccer league. Soccer moms, karate moms. And it's good for the kids, but I worry more about the kids. There's a little 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old kid, 11, 12, 13, whatever, goes out and thinks they can take on anybody. They learn a hard lesson when they find out those street people are pretty tough. So that's not instilling the art. That's just buying about, no bullying. But don't teach them enough to get their ass kicked. Teach them the mental discipline of it and the respect that they should have for it.
On a fun note, I was fortunate enough to meet Mr. Stanley almost 20 years ago at a karate seminar. While he was there, he gave us an inspirational speech on never giving up and always keep our engines running, an expression he referred to as warm up the bus. Now, at the seminar, we all got these bumper stickers with this message on it, and it left such an impact on me that I actually held on to it after all these years.
Oh my God! Warm up the bus. Warm up the bus. When I met Sean Kelly in 1997, we were at a seminar in Kentucky. Gil Hibbins was having it, the guy that made the Kenpo knives. Still a great knife maker. I walked in a room and there was a bunch of black belts. I walked in and somebody said, "This is Sean Kelly." I said, "Sean, warm up the bus, buddy. Warm up the bus." Warm up the bus means getting after it. Those that really, when we do our techniques and we practice on each other, just pounding. But warm up the bus was just a thing that I had between me and Sean and my black belt buddies. That warm up the bus means get after it. That means it was time to turn up the tunes. That's great. I love that.
We really appreciate Mr. Stanley for taking the time to talk with us, sharing his story, and offering hope for the future. Thank you, sir. And thank you to everyone who has been supporting our channel. We have many aspirations, many topics we want to cover, and many people we want to talk to. With your help and support, we can grow this channel and achieve all of that. So please like, comment, subscribe, and share this video. Thank you all very much.